Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And it will come as a surprise to virtually no one that the low emission zone in Glasgow is having a devastating effect on trade. People are just now not driving into the city in the same numbers. Businesses are losing footfall, they're losing money. There's going to be a lot of businesses closing up, boarding up and going away. The city will look even more deserted. And then the Glasgow City Council will go, well, what's going on? If only we knew what would, in advance what would happen. We didn't know. But of course they did know. They were told from day one that this would have a devastating effect. And yet still they carried on with it because they need the money. We reported last week how they've already made £1 million of this scheme in the last couple of months. So it's not a scheme that's going to be going away anytime soon. However, more and more businesses will increasingly move away from the centre, and thus fewer people will find a need to even go into the centre of Glasgow. And this is what happens: people will move to more outer regions of the city. And then it's just the level of stupidity, I think, is just astounding. They are a constant source of astonishment, aren't they? Anyway, we'll take a look at this story and see why so many people, and professional bodies as well, are complaining about the low emission zone. Here goes. Right, so this is one of those things we said would happen right from the beginning. So they've got no excuse that, we didn't know, because everybody knew that this would happen. It happens all the time. Glasgow low emission zone is killing the city centre as confused motorists stay away rather than risking a fine. Because it could be that you've got one of the cleanest cars, but it's a year too old. Or you think you've got a very dirty car, even though it doesn't matter, because it's a new car. And so people just go, I don't know if I'm going in or not. And they just don't. They just go elsewhere. And that's what happens. So the Scottish Retail Consortium, the Scottish Taxi Federation, and the Glasgow Restaurant Association and the AA all agree that the low emission zone is driving people away from the city centre. Now they're going to say, that's a good thing. Look, and the air quality is coming down. Well, the air quality is improving. Well, in actual fact, there was nothing wrong with the air quality. They've already cleaned it. It's a clean air, so there's no there. But what's happening now is they're not just getting rid of all the nasty, dirty air. They're getting rid of all the nasty, dirty people. And all the people going elsewhere. Glasgow city centre, going to die a death. Wander down Socky Hall Street, be like a desert. Shops will close. There will be boarded up shops on Socky Hall Street. Anyway, confusion around Glasgow's low emission zone is driving even compliant motorists away from the city over fears of hefty fines. It has been claimed the low emission scheme has penalised more than 20,000 motorists since it was introduced in June, with penalties already topping £1 million as reported last week. Footfall in the city centre was already declining, and combined with a punitive fine of on-street parking charges and the city's maze of one-way streets and bus and cycle lanes, the ULEZ, which survived a legal challenge last week, has turned the once thriving heart of Glasgow into a no-go zone for some motorists. And of course the trouble is, when you go in to buy things, you can't take these things home on a bus. You need a car to move some of these things. You need cars to go in and and especially in the evenings when people are going in to restaurants and cinemas and things like that, you've just got to have vehicles. There's no buses, or half the buses are not running anymore. A spokesman for the AA said the SNP-run City Council ignored calls to improve the park and ride facilities in the city. He said, in recent years, we've seen so many stories of car and van owners who bought diesel vehicles they thought met clean air standards, only to find out they didn't. And with that conclusion and confusion, drivers will play it safe, stay away from the cities with LEZs, and potentially deny those cities the spending those visitors would have brought with them. And that's what happens. When you've got fewer people coming in, everybody loses. Well, everybody in the city centre loses. Everybody out in the suburbs is winning. That little restaurant that was only doing 40 covers, 50 covers a day, it's doing 100 covers a day because people aren't going into the city centre. There's the bars, the restaurants, all the places that are outside that ring of money, that money filter around the city centre. They're all going to do exceedingly well because nobody's going in. But the centre, going to die, isn't it? Ironically, the IA has previously flagged the inadequacies of Glasgow's park and ride provision compared to cities like Cambridge. Or Oxford's got quite a good one as well. Oxford's a bugger to get in and out, got to be honest. Not only should that provide an easy alternative for those car drivers worried their vehicle has become a fines magnet, but also encouraged other drivers, even with compliant vehicles, to leave them on the outskirts. This would contribute to even more to improving inner city air quality. No, it won't. And there's the thing, it's actually crap, because we know what are the most polluting vehicles in the city? Buses. Where's the lowest air quality in the city? Bus station. What are the single biggest polluters as recorded when they changed the buses and the air quality improved? Buses. All the way. It's been buses all along. And of course, if you're increasing your park and ride, okay, you're losing your cars. But what you're putting in? The polluting vehicles, the buses. They showed this, that as soon, almost immediately after this low emission zone came in, air quality in Glasgow went down because there was more buses. These people are morons, aren't they? They're absolute morons. Fines for non-compliant vehicles start at £60, with the penalty charge doubling with each subsequent breach, rising to a maximum of £480 for cars and light goods vehicles and £960 for buses and HGVs. Taxi drivers have been given a 1-year exemption until June 2024, but the Scottish Taxi Federation warned that the council's green policies could negatively impact city centre businesses. We're already seeing it. There's already been cases we've actually reported on things, on restaurateurs actually thinking of closing up because they're not getting that footfall of an evening anymore. A Federation spokesman said, while the taxi trade is not currently affected by the penalty charge, we are concerned that restrictions combined with punitive parking charges will discourage the public from travelling to Glasgow. This is clearly bad for business and the city economy. The spokesman added, on a daily basis we hear from members of the public who are still confused on how the LEZ will impact on them, even when their cars are compliant. And our concern is that they will avoid Glasgow entirely. And that, of course, is what happens. It happens all the time. People when they're unsure, you have fear, uncertainty and doubt. It's called FUD. Fear, uncertainty and doubt. And they have introduced the fear of fines and the uncertainty of whether they should drive their car in or not. And that leads to the doubt of whether they should go to Glasgow at all. And what happens? They don't. They'll go off and they'll go there and there. They'll go all over. They'll stay on the outskirts. They won't go into the city centre. Scottish Conservative Shadow Transport Minister Graham Simpson said it is clear that the imposition of the low emission zone is placing a huge burden on ordinary drivers. Well, of course it is. And at a time when, everything is so expensive, it's money that you can ill afford to pay. And of course, who pays it? This is the worst of it, of course, is who are the ones that suffer the most? It's the ones who are already poor. It's the poorest, the lowest paid, are the ones who suffer the most out of this. Rich boy buys a brand new car. Oh, look at me 6.8 litre, Bentley driving down the road. It's perfectly fine. 6.8 litres, but yeah, it's clean engine. It's a clean engine, you see, because it's new. Whereas your man in your sort of 1 litre Corsa that just happens to be a day older than the limit pumps out a tenth of what the other one's pumping. Oh no, you've got a dirty vehicle because it's old. It's madness. Madness. And of course the other thing, which I keep saying, go and do it. Nip over to the south of Ireland, buy a car, come back. There you go. You're legal. They can't stop you. They can't. You're not on the database. There's nothing they can do. Anyway, Glasgow City Council needs to consider the overall economic impact of any new policies which may make the city centre less accessible. And of course, if it's less accessible, it's less attractive to go to because people are going to worry. And therefore, that's a lot of money on a grand scale. If you think, someone going into the town may spend, let's just be even conservative about it and say £50. They're going to go in, they're going to spend £50. Well, let's say that 1,000 people a week choose not to go in, and it's going to be way more. It's going to be more money. It's going to be 50,000 a week, 2.5 million a year, gone out of the economy, out of the shops. 2.5 million gone, and that's so conservative. You're going to be looking really £50 a week. Nah, it's going to be 150 a week, and it isn't going to be 1,000 people. It's going to be 10,000 people. You're talking hundreds of millions of pounds being lost out of that economy in that city centre, simply because Glasgow Council have screwed up their finances so badly they need to tax and tax and tax, and they've decided that the best way to tax people in order to make up the shortfall in their budget is to aim their taxes at the poor. And yet the poor people keep voting for the SNP. What is wrong with them? Are you poor because you're stupid, or are you stupid because you're poor? Because you have to wonder, because you have to be really, really stupid to vote for the people that are targeting you personally for tax. And that's what the SNP are doing. They're targeting the poor. Anyway, I shall stop there and come up, but it just goes to show that everybody thinks that this is a really bad idea. I mean, listen, you've got to look at this in the summary. I mean, I think the summary really does tell you exactly what's going on. You have a council that have completely overspent and screwed their finances so badly, but then they are the SNP, they're not bright, that they need to raise that cash. And so they're going, right, bang. So number one, they're aiming at poor people, the ones who can't change their cars, can't buy the newer models, whatever. So they claim they want to be progressive in taxation, yet they're deliberately targeting poor people. At the same time, very many people are telling them not to do it. It's a bad idea, including the poor people who can't afford to pay it. But the shopkeepers, the restaurateurs, taxi companies, the Board of Commerce, everyone who lives in the city, the AA, the opposition, everyone is saying don't do it. Everyone's saying they don't want it, and yet they've gone ahead and done it just so that they can keep sending people to Dubai first class with lots of caviar and champagne at 30,000 feet. The people of Glasgow need to stop voting for the SNP because it'll just give you more of the same. And when all the centre of Glasgow's closed because there's just nobody going there. And the thing is, and you get the cumulative snowball effect, which I forgot to mention this. If you're walking down a street that's got lots and lots of open and attractive shops, okay, you can go boom, 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 boom. If all of a sudden there's a boarded up shop, it just makes the street look a bit bad. And then the one across the way is boarded up. Slowly, that street becomes less attractive, which means the other shops which were doing okay start struggling. And then they close up. The next thing, the whole bloody street looks like it's in Hull. And it is going to drive trade away, not just from that street, but from the street across the way and from somewhere else and from somewhere else. And then they wonder why so many people buy so much stuff online. Well, this is why. These are the reasons why. This LEZ is why high streets close. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Went on a bit longer than I intended, but hey, it is the truth, and it is the SNP, and they're doing it to themselves. And unfortunately, not only doing it to themselves, they're doing it to the people of Glasgow deliberately. They know, they've been told, they know, and they're still going on with it because they need the money. Oh well, till next time, stay safe, stay well. Do not vote for the SNP if you like, shopping, and goodbye.